today's session will start with Professor Słuchocka's paper and presentation. She will talk about classroom vision or dreams.
Szanowni Państwo, dzień dobry o poranku.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I give you a very good morning. So in reference to yesterday's introductory contribution by Professor Swyk, I would like to talk today about architecture and history. And let me start by presenting you a video filmed in a very beautiful venue. So for centuries, actually for 2 centuries, that building has been present. And let us talk about the eternal nature of this structure. So let us watch the film.
Templar.
Powinien być jeszcze głos.
Actually, we are not getting the soundtrack.
Templar. 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 Templar.
Byliśmy zatem na Morawach w Czechach.
So that was Moravia in Czechia.
Tak, bo o tym mówił profesor Słyk.
I would like to consider and reflect on continuity. So here we have that specific continuity. So I will have some quotes from some distinguished architects, and I would like us to consider what, why, and where. And I will present you my interpretation of that unique nature of the Tugendhat villa. So the experience bring us some important experience of architecture and the space and time. They melt into one substance that transpires through our awareness. So we are relating to history because history creates what we have now. So what is happening now, it is happening in history. If it wasn't for heritage, we wouldn't be going for the best, because architecture is based on the achievements so far. It is based on the support from thinking, from artificial intelligence, international way of thinking. These days, information travels faster, so that past is necessary to create a perfect future. A piece of architecture should last until the future, but as Rasmussen said, not all works of art can exist like that. At the stage of designing, a building should be the avant-garde of its time. So the Tudengard Villa is an avant-garde building, and I believe that in the coming years and decades, it would look like a building that was created yesterday. Then we have that need to function, to operate, which is combined with this perfect feeling and idea of an order of the architect. They form a perfect image. Tatarkiewicz also said that because of number, everything looks perfect, ideal. Let us go back to the Pythagoreans. So they reconfirmed their actions and they operated because of geometry. So they were not guided by the appearance. They were guided by the truth that could be calculated and presented by a figure, by a formula, and this way perfect structures could be created. As some have already said here, that feeling of understanding and seeing these buildings that last until now, even as ruins, that all tells us about what was happening yesterday. So we have this image of architecture that has left a trace on us, on our soul. So that accompanies us and takes us forward. So we should have respect for context and for what we have, but we should be able to work with contemporary accents. These are things, so we design space, so these spaces are not only replicas and quotes from the past, because it would no longer be the experience of encountering something new. It's about subtlety, it's about the right creation, it's about combination that creates and brings about a perfect piece of work. Haydenowicz said that we must remember that the quality of living environment and standards come as the result of creative heritage, architecture of past periods that could become the basis for today's architectural creation. If we collect all quotations from the world, they could form this common idea or statement. A piece of architecture should survive into very remote future. So let us go back to the Tudengard Villa. It's a timeless structure, perfect form, which is harmonious and well balanced. And I was endeavoring to refer that structure to a piece of visual art, which is a painting by Starzewski. But for now, we are in the villa that subtly introduces the visitor to its beauty. So we have the glass panes that glister and glimmer in the sun when we have this round depth of that element of the composition. When turning its back to the bypassers in the streets, they couldn't keep their intimacy, so all their life was taking place from the side of the garden with the beautiful panorama of the city of Brno.
i odnieść do dzieła
the top of the hill.
plastycznego,
So if
można
we
powiedzieć, że
now
obraz jest
refer to a
doskonały,
piece of
wtedy, kiedy nie
visual
można
art,
z
we
niego
could say
nic
that an
dodać,
image
ująć
is
lub nie
perfect or a
nic
picture
dodać.
is perfect when you
Każda
cannot
ingerencja
add
zakłóci
anything
harmonię,
or
zakłóci
take
doskonałość kompozycji.
anything from it. So
I
any interference
spoglądając
will
na
disrupt
układ
the perfection of the
kompozycyjny
composition.
mamy
So
do
when we
czynienia
look at the
z
layout
prostą,
and how this villa
formą.
is has been designed, we can see that
Gdyby szukając kompozycyjnie
simple,
i patrząc na
well-designed
strukturę obrazu,
visual
można było doszukiwać
form.
właśnie i układu
So
symetrii,
we could
złamania tej
see
symetrii.
that symmetry and compositional order. There was a partition wall which was the main axis for the composition and for the house. Then we have a system of artistic forms that led us through all the interior parts, internal parts of the house. Mies van der Rohe was the chief architect of that building, was engaged in avant-garde, and the owner, Mr. Tugendhat, had some doubts about this building. This building was extravagant, was quite expensive, whether it made sense, whether it was the right thing to have such an expensive building. But actually, the wooden wall juxtaposed the glass door, and the architect said, well, you could do it in a different way, but commission someone else. So because of the architect's resistance and the architect's persistence and perseverance, that building stood and held against the war, held out against the war and the Soviet time, etc. So now it's been turned into a museum that can perfectly reflect the shape and the nature of the building. So looking at these two plans, we have this obvious analogy. If we were to compare the composition of that picture and the design, we have that system and of rectangulars and squares, and then we have the symmetry axis, then we have the circles. So that axis divides that picture into half, and in the layout it also introduces some order into that internal space. Then, if we were to analyze, to go even deeper into the profile, the layout of the villa, we can also refer to this partition wall, which very nicely organizes space, and it crystallizes the space, and it also sets out functional zones because its proportions and functionality and location within the space of the building sets out several functional zones. This partition wall reinforces and stabilizes the layout of the whole system. And when I was, so to say, cleaning that concept, I've achieved that type of artistic composition. And I believe that if a floor plan is balanced, is well composed, is well thought through, if it's transitioned into a artistic drawing, well, that is the measure of the quality of that composition. Then if we go even further and we allocate some colors to these planes, we have that full and condensed composition, which is vertical in nature, and we have that analogy, so the floor plan and the picture, they have this mutual reference and mutually reflect each other. So we have everything that we knew for a perfect work of art, and then we have that modesty when it comes to the number of details. So that was characteristic of Starzewski and van der Waal. No unnecessary additions. Then we have all the systems, all the based in the structure, based on steel construction. Well, the solid is light. So from the garden, this solid is flowing in the air and offers an insight into the interior. So the architect wanted to combine the interior with the exterior, and he also designed a winter garden inside the villa. Here we may refer to Vitruvius and to the durability, timeliness, and value of a building. And when it comes to the interior and the interior design, so that is again full balance, so no eclectic elements, nothing that could be potentially removed, and or that's even an inviting simplicity and moderation. So that is suggests that that type of building could continue with us longer and longer. If we were to refer to a poet, Przyboś, who worked together with another Polish poet, Tuwim, and they brought together a monography. I have a piece of his poem, fragment of his poem that refers to that villa. Here the moon hung out outside the window, and tapping the plaster fell away as a shadow. The stars flowed down the window pane. There, outside, I will walk, following the traces on the floor with my gaze. The room full of light cannot contain me. Just as I cannot contain me, I feel twice as much in my body. So where we're inside, we can feel that we are in a different world altogether. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave you here with my reflections about a piece of architectural work, about a piece of visual art. So architects for centuries have been walking that road so that they could be positively reflected on in the next centuries. Thank you.